What would you do if you woke up in the middle of the night and realized you weren't alone? Imagine hearing slow, steady breathing beneath your bed, only to discover your roommate, the person you trusted to share your home with, silently hiding there, watching you. This isn't a campfire story. This is a true horror account from Reddit, and it will make you question just how well you know the people around you. Stick with me until the end, because what police uncovered made this already terrifying situation even worse. Asterisk, this story comes from a college student who had recently moved into a small off-campus apartment. Rent was tight, so splitting it with a roommate seemed like the best option. On paper, the arrangement looked perfect. The new roommate, let's call him Jake, was quiet, paid rent on time, and didn't bring people over. At first, everything seemed normal, but within the first few weeks, small things felt off. Jake rarely left his room except late at night. Sometimes, the student would wake up around 2 or 3 a.m. and hear the front door creak open. Jake would vanish into the darkness and return hours later, never offering an explanation. When asked about his odd schedule, Jake would just smile and say, "I like late walks. The world feels safer at night." That answer didn't sit right. It wasn't just his strange hours. There were little details that stuck in the back of the student's mind. Jake almost never turned on his overhead lights. He'd sit in his room with just a dim lamp, shadows stretching across the walls. He also had this unsettling habit of staring just a little too long during conversations, as if studying every word, every move. Still, the student brushed it off. After all, college is stressful. Maybe he was just paranoid, right? But paranoia turned into unease when things around the apartment started changing. Food would disappear from the fridge overnight. Not full meals, but little things. Half a sandwich, a slice of cheese, an open can of soda. At first, the student assumed he just forgot eating them, but soon the pattern became too clear. And then came the sounds. In the silence of the night, while scrolling on his phone or drifting to sleep, he'd hear faint movements. Not footsteps, not doors creaking, but something softer. A shuffle, a scratch, almost like something or someone was brushing against the floor in his own bedroom. And that's when the real terror began creeping in. Asterisk. That night started like any other. The student was buried in his laptop, finishing notes for an upcoming exam. Jake had left the apartment around midnight. The door clicked shut, and silence filled the space. For the first time in weeks, the student felt a strange sense of relief when Jake wasn't around. He told himself it was just nerves. After all, Jake had been nothing but polite. But deep down, there was something he couldn't shake, a heaviness in his chest that grew every time Jake's eyes lingered too long in conversation. By 2 a.m., exhaustion finally caught up. He turned off his lamp, leaving only the faint glow of his phone. He scrolled through messages, letting his mind drift. Then came the sound, a small, sharp creak, like weight shifting against the wooden floorboards. His body stiffened. He lived on the second floor. There shouldn't be footsteps in his room. He held his breath, listening. Seconds passed. Nothing. Just the distant hum of the refrigerator down the hall. He told himself it was nothing. Maybe the building settling. And then he heard it again. This time, it wasn't a creak. It was breathing. Slow. Rhythmic. Coming from directly beneath him. His stomach dropped. The phone almost slipped from his hand as adrenaline flooded his body. He wanted to scream, to bolt out of the room, but his body wouldn't move. His mind raced. There's no way. I'm imagining this. I'm just tired. But then he heard a shift. A scrape. The sound of fabric brushing against wood. Summoning courage he didn't know he had, he rolled to the side of the bed, hand trembling as he angled his phone toward the floor. With a shaking thumb, he switched on the flashlight. And that's when his world shattered. The beam caught two eyes staring back. Wide, glassy, watching. His roommate Jake lay flat on his stomach, his face inches from where the student had been sleeping. His hair was a mess, his skin pale against the shadows, and his mouth twisted into a crooked, unsettling smile. For several frozen seconds, neither moved. The student's pulse thundered in his ears. Jake's expression never changed. Then Jake whispered, his voice soft, almost gentle. "Don't worry. I was just making sure you were safe." The words hit harder than a scream. They were wrong. Too calm. Too practiced. The student lurched back, nearly tumbling out of bed. "Get out! Get out from under there!" He shouted, his voice cracking. But Jake didn't move. He just blinked slowly, like an animal caught in the light, his smile stretching wider. Finally, after an agonizing pause, Jake slid out from under the bed. He didn't rush, didn't act guilty. He simply stood, dust clinging to his clothes, and looked at the student as though nothing unusual had happened. Without a word, he turned and walked to his own room, closing the door behind him. The student's chest heaved. He scrambled to lock his door, pressing his back against it as though Jake might return. He stayed awake the rest of the night, lamp blazing, phone clutched in his hand. Every tick of the clock was torture. Every shadow seemed alive. And when morning finally came, sunlight spilling across the floor, Jake emerged from his room like nothing had happened. "Morning," Jake said casually, pouring himself a cup of coffee. He smiled. "Did you sleep okay?" The student couldn't even answer. His throat went dry. He realized something terrifying. Jake didn't just do it. He wanted to be caught. Asterisk. After that night, nothing felt safe anymore. The student barely slept, every muscle tensed whenever he heard the floor creak or Jake's door open. But what terrified him most was how normal Jake acted the next day, and every day after. It was as if nothing had happened, as if Jake hadn't been caught lying under his bed in the dead of night. The student thought maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe stress and lack of sleep had played tricks on him. But deep down, he knew the truth. The look in Jake's eyes wasn't something you could hallucinate. That smile, it was real. From then on, he locked his bedroom door every night. He double-checked the windows. He left a light on until morning. But Jake always seemed one step ahead. Some nights, the student would wake up to faint rattling at his door handle, like someone trying it gently, careful not to wake him. He'd lie there, frozen, staring at the knob until the sound stopped. By morning, Jake would greet him with his usual calm smile. One evening, while the student was cooking dinner, he realized one of his kitchen knives was missing. Not the small ones, but the largest one from the block. He searched the sink, the counters, the dishwasher. Nothing. When he asked Jake casually if he'd borrowed it, Jake looked at him for a long moment, and then grinned. "Nope. Haven't seen it," he said. His voice was light, almost playful. The student didn't believe him. Things got stranger. The food theft grew worse. Entire meals vanished from the fridge. Once, the student came home to find his room slightly disturbed. Drawers a little open, clothes moved, even though he always locked his door. He started to wonder if Jake had a spare key. The final straw came one weekend. The student returned earlier than usual from a late-night library session. As he quietly unlocked the apartment door, he noticed something odd, the glow of light spilling from the crack beneath his bedroom door. His stomach twisted. He never left his bedroom light on. He crept closer, holding his breath. And then he heard it, humming, soft, low, coming from inside his room. Hands shaking, he shoved the door open. Jake was inside, sitting on his bed. He wasn't startled. He didn't even jump. He just looked up with that same cold, lingering stare. "Oh," Jake said casually as though he belonged there. "I was just waiting for you." On the desk beside him was the missing kitchen knife. The student's blood ran cold. He backed out of the room immediately, slamming the door behind him, and ran straight out of the apartment into the night. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of a well-lit street. His hands trembled as he dialed 911, voice breaking as he explained what had just happened. When the police arrived, they searched the apartment. Jake was gone, but what they found left everyone shaken. The police searched every inch of my apartment that night. They checked the windows, the doors, even the fire escape. But when they finished, they just looked at me with tired eyes. "No signs of forced entry," one officer said. Another muttered, "Probably stress. Nightmares can play tricks on you." But I knew what I saw. I knew the feeling of that cold hand around my ankle, dragging me toward the darkness beneath my bed. One officer, as he was leaving, leaned a little closer to me. His voice was low, almost as if he didn't want his partner to hear. "You're not the first to call from this building," he whispered. "Strange noises, shadows, missing tenants. People move out overnight, no forwarding address." And then he was gone. I tried to move on. I packed what little I had and found another apartment across town. It was smaller, cheaper, and not nearly as nice. But I told myself it was a fresh start. For a few weeks, things felt normal. I worked, I cooked, I tried to laugh at late-night sitcoms. I even started to believe maybe it had all been in my head. But then, the little things started again. One night, I woke up to the sound of the television blaring static. I never turned it on. Another night, I found a coffee mug in the middle of the kitchen floor. I hadn't used it in days. And soon, the scratching returned. Not from under the bed this time, but from the ceiling. I told myself it was rats, pipes, anything but what I feared. But then came the night I finally snapped. I woke to that all-too-familiar sound, movement under my bed. Heart pounding, I grabbed a flashlight and forced myself to look. Nothing. Just dust and shadows. But when I stood back up, the closet door, which I knew I had shut, was wide open, and taped to the inside wall was a stack of photographs. My photographs. Each one was of me, sleeping, and the last picture was from last night. After that, I couldn't function. I stopped eating. I barely slept. When I did manage to doze off, I set up a camera to record myself through the night. The next morning, I played it back. At first, it showed me tossing and turning, rolling onto my side. Normal enough. But then, I froze. Not just asleep. Frozen like something was holding me down. And then, from the corner of the frame, a dark shape began to crawl out from beneath the bed. Slow, deliberate, impossibly thin. It leaned over my sleeping body, its face inches from mine. Then, it disappeared. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, I swore I'd stay awake. But exhaustion won. I remember staring at the ceiling, fighting to keep my eyes open, until they finally closed. And then came the whisper. So close I thought it was inside my head. "Found you." I tried to move. I tried to scream. But I couldn't. Sleep paralysis pinned me in place. Something pressed against my chest. A hand. Ice cold. Another hand. Then another. Dozens of them. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. And the last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was the sight of countless pale arms reaching from beneath the bed, dragging me down into the place where no one comes back. So the next time you're about to fall asleep, ask yourself this: are you really alone in your room? Or is something waiting underneath? If you've made it this far, you're braver than most. But if you want to test that bravery again, subscribe to the Nightmare Files. Every week, I'll bring you more true horror stories that will keep you awake at night. And if you survive this one, drop a comment below, because I want to know what keeps you up at night.